we have a couple of minutes to spend some time talking about the film with our guests. Here's how we'll do it. If you have a question, if you can put your hand up and kind of go like this, that helps me see it against the light. If you could also speak as loudly as you can and as briefly as you can, I'll repeat it for the benefit of everyone else in the house. And I think those are the rules. Okay, please join me in welcoming back Director of Disconnect, Henry Adams.
That feels good. Thank you, guys.
Okay, are there any questions? Did you press the
If you want us out here, yeah, we just wanted to applaud him too. Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, I am looking. Nobody is waving right at the moment. Yes, there you are over at the side, please.
Why did you call the movie Disconnect?
The question is, why did you call the movie Disconnect?
That was the title on the script.
Okay. There was a gentleman somewhere. Oh, here we go. Yes, go ahead. That's a great question. The question was, he noticed that you use different camera techniques and lighting for each of the different story strands. Can you talk a bit about that decision?
We didn't mean to.
You're making this hard for me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, I come from documentaries and I don't really know how to make fiction movies. I'm learning. So what I would do is I would just, you know, we'd go through the truth of the stuff together, and then I would set up two cameras and zoom in from far away and let them just be, and just breathe and be themselves and try not to, you know, act, just be. And that's how I tried to make this movie. You know, so that's how I know how to make documentaries. So I applied that to fiction. And I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question, you know, but that's what we tried to do. Try to make it as eavesdropped and real as possible. Because that's, when you make a documentary, there's always things in the way, and it's always difficult. And so when you make a fiction movie, you're just, I don't know, you just have to just get everything out of the way and just try to film things that feel truthful. And that's what we all try to do.
Up there in the balcony, please.
Where did you get the inspiration for each of the stories?
Did everybody hear that? Sorry, where did the inspiration come for each of the stories?
I think we should bring Andrew Stern up here, who wrote this. Andrew?
You're just going to have to applaud again now.
I mean, you know, they all seem like they come from the headlines to me. You know, when I read this, it seemed like things that were still happening. So identity theft, cyberbullying, loneliness, pornography. All these things are things we're all dealing with now. I think no one's quite sure what to do with technology. We love it. It brings us, for the most part, closer. But there's a lot of questions like, do you spy on your kids? Do you look at their web histories? Is it okay to bring a phone to?
Well, it was called disconnect because not about we should disconnect, but more about the disconnect between private and public and how we live online and that sort of disconnect. It wasn't meant to be sort of the internet is bad and we should all disconnect. That's never going to happen. The stories, I don't know. They're just.
Do you want to put the mic back?
It's too loud. The inspiration, it kind of just came from years ago, sitting at dinner with people and everybody had their phone out and sensing that that was changing. I think it's all happened so quickly that we don't even realize how fast technology keeps changing and evolving. And so that, I think, disconnect just keeps getting faster and greater. And so then a lot of the stories came from different things that are ripped from the headlines. I mean, the first inspiration was the girl who hung herself after the mother and the girl down the street pretended to be a boy. That was like 6 years ago, so that's when I started writing the script. And God, what are the other stories? The web porn cat, the sex kid came from...
Don't get into this one. He's happily married now, guys. Let's give it up for him.
Okay. Yes. I'll take the next question. Yes. The question is for Mr. Bateman. How did you enjoy the challenge of a more serious role, and do you find it incredibly different than doing comedy?
It's certainly different, and I'm just very thankful that they kind of took a flyer on me and assumed that I could do something like this. And I want to thank the probably close to 3,000 guys who must have said no before you came. The challenge was using a little piece of technology, flipping through my iPhone and looking at pictures of, at the time, my first daughter. Now I've got 2 daughters, but my first daughter, and just looking at pictures of her over and over again before we shot a couple of the crying scenes, and like imagining horrible things. So try to make yourself cry on cue. Like, okay, we're gonna need you in about 10 minutes crying, so get ready. And, it's doing drama is pretty tough. They say comedy's hard, but drama's pretty tough too. So.
Okay. There was another. Go ahead. Yes. Yeah. That's a good question. She's noting that you were a documentary filmmaker before. She's asking, was this brought to you, or did you seek it out? And do you ever think about returning to documentaries?
Documentaries, I think, they're still my first love. I love, filming real people, because all you do is hit record, and it's the truth most of the time. I was attracted to this because it just seemed like something I would actually make, and be curious to make a documentary about. A couple that get their identity stolen and become vigilantes. If I filmed that documentary, it would be riveting. If I had access to real bullies, bullies are not bad people. They egg each other on, and it just happens. We've all, at some point, laughed at the expense of someone else. And if I had had access to that story as a documentarian, I would have been very interested to film it, but you wouldn't have been able to because you would have, you would have had to stop it. And thirdly, the story between Kyle and Nina is fascinating. This is something that there's thousands upon thousands of people. I mean, the internet apparently was forged by pornography. And so this was, this is one of the #1 businesses early on in the birth of the internet. And so it feels like it's a big elephant in the room. Nobody ever talks about the fact that, 50%, according to a statistic I read, 50% of marriages end because of something that has to do with pornography. So this was an interesting way to explore that, that storyline. And these kids that are now going on and they just, all they do is they perform. And kids do it in dorm rooms. And, we researched all these things together. And so this would have been a fascinating documentary also to me. So I read both these three stories. They all seem like completely riveting. And the approach, I spoke a little bit about setting up 2 cameras and filming things and letting things go, but there was another approach, which was after, the script came, is that we sort of built a shadow cast, just to give any of the actors and actresses access to real people who'd gone through some of these things that they wanted. Paula met a woman who lost a child, and Frank met the head of cybercrimes at NYPD and spent time with him. And so this was sort of my only way of approaching fiction, was just to sort of retroactively turn it into, a documentary, and then try to film as much truth as possibly could, and then let an editor, and help me figure out what felt really truthful and what wasn't truthful. But it's sort of retroactively, built out of headlines, and then back to, headlines, I guess, or back to real people. Yeah, that was very long-winded.